Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the GolfRules Questions podcast. Roscoe here, your co-host, and sitting alongside Blakey, the GolfRules Questions extraordinaire. I'm trying to think of something different every week to introduce you, Blakey. Extraordinaire we'll go with this week. How are you, sir? You well?
Yeah, going really well. It's just noticed it's raining outside, so I'm probably glad I'm inside today. How are you going?
Mate, I'm going great. I am going great. I'm busy. We're still, it's obviously a challenging time, and let's not bore the listeners with the challenging time that us Victorians are facing, because I've heard enough of that. But busy being podcasting and busy, keeping things going, mate. So it's all good, mate. Not a different episode this week. We've got a couple of rules scenarios to discuss, and another listener question to run through. But we thought we might get a little bit of insight into your world. And we talked about some of the tournaments that you've refereed at in previous episodes. And last this episode, we talked to you about your background, and it was at Wentworth where you refereed. So we might come back to that, but we'll talk about some of your experiences in handling these big events and some of the situations that you found yourself dealing with, and some of the maybe players, not by name, but just player situations. So let's get into it with our first little rules topic. You wrote recently in one of your newsletters, which I would ask everyone to go and subscribe to over at your website. You can subscribe to Blakey's wonderful work that he puts out. You wrote about, is it hold? And in the recent Women's Open, played at Royal Troon, the AIG Open, we had a little scenario there where the question was raised, is it hold? And it was, I guess, raised in reference to old rule, new rule. So let's have a listen to that scenario and come back and have a chat about it. Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, let's go for it. Good start.
All righty, let's get into it and let's go.
This isn't easy. Keep that club face open, grip down, just be aggressive through the ball. She knows that not much you could do, just try and advance it. Hopefully she's got it past the long stuff.
What a shot this is. Oh, get in. Now that is the craziest par we're going to see all week.
Thank you.
So young Lindsay Weaver there, she was chunking it out of the rough for the first shot, for those listening and wanting the description. Chunked it out of the rough for the first shot, chips it in for the second, well, it was her fourth shot. It was a par, but, chips it in. And then the ball looks like, from the viewing position, that it's not in the hole. What actually happened there?
Yeah, so, as you said, she was chipping in for her fourth. And you could still see the ball at rest against the flagstick, but part of the ball was above the surface of the ground and part of it was below. Now, 2 years ago, that would not be considered hold, and you'd actually have to go up, move the flagstick, and the ball would drop down. In most part, if you're silly enough to pick the flagstick out of the hole and the ball came out of the hole, then it wouldn't be hold and you'd put it on the lip. That is no longer. So the rule from these days is that if it is at rest against the flagstick and it's partly below the surface of the ground, it's hold. So you can see on the YouTube that the wind actually moves it, so the ball does drop all the way down, but just in that split second, it actually is considered hold anyway, because part of the ball was below the surface of the ground and the ball was at rest against the flagstick. And, there's a few situations in that rules newsletter about, is it hold, that slightly changed with the rules. We saw a really popular one about 2 years ago, really blew up the Twitter sphere in terms of a ball that was actually at rest on a stick over the hole, and part of it was below the hole, and they considered that it wasn't hold. That's actually they considered it not. They considered it hold back then. That actually, if you read the newsletter, was confirmed by the RNA that it's not hold now. So basically you have to have your ball, all of it below the level of the surface or the surface of the ground, except in that small situation, rare situation where it is going to be at rest against the flagstick, maybe not so rare, rest against the flagstick with part of the ball below the ground, that would still be considered hold.
So is there any situations that you've become aware of, obviously now in COVID times, we're playing with these noodles, in the holes, and, like, I think they're just being cut by the ground staff at whatever level. I know they've created some situations where the ball may have otherwise gone in the hole when it was traveling at pace, and the noodles caused it to bounce out of the hole, and that's just unfortunate now in current times. But is there any situations that have been created that you're aware of out of that?
Yeah, well, a few local rules have been created out of that, and it's up to the committee to create a local rule that they think is first and foremost safe. So, reducing the touching or brushing of the flagstick or around the hole, reducing the chance that you've touched somewhere else that's somewhere that someone else has touched. So a lot of clubs have put the pool noodles up. A few clubs basically turned their cups upside down, so you couldn't even hold it. Now, if it just hits the cup that's upside down and you can't hold it, obviously you're going to have a local rule stating as soon as the ball touches the cup, it's hold. Now, whereas other clubs, if the pool noodle's just slightly in below the surface, they might have a local rule saying, it's hold if it's at rest on top of the pool noodle. Other clubs might have, as soon as it touches the pool noodle, it's hold. So, it's very important that a committee creates those watertight local rules that it sees fit. Now, if someone is just going and putting as hard as they can to hit the cup that's turned upside down, or, just at least touch the flagstick or touch the pool noodle, whatever it is, and their handicap goes from 22 to down to 9, and they win a few comps on the way, they can't turn around at the end of COVID and say, oh, well, I shouldn't actually be on a 9 handicap, But if that's the kind of complaint that you're going to get as a committee, then as a committee, you probably should think about what kind of local rules and what kind of, situation you're going to put the golfers in.
There have been some quite funny, parody videos of the cup situated upside down, made just making fun of that very rule. People shooting 58 and 59, and that sort of thing has been quite funny.
Yeah, I think I saw that as well, and I was like, oh, it's just, people hole-in-ones and situations like that. It is what the committee deems it to be for what is hold. I've written a newsletter, as I said, about the rules, the rules of golf. But if the committee comes up with these local rules, then it goes under those local rules, because they are permitted during this time of COVID. Outside of COVID, those local rules for what is hold would be unauthorized. But yeah, I've seen the same thing. So you want to do what's fair for everyone, and imagine having a hole-in-one or being denied a hole-in-one by a pool noodle in this day.
Yeah, well, there's another scenario that popped up into my vision the other week, and I found it interesting. Now, pool noodles are one way of not having to touch the flag, but some of the clubs have put the the little picker-uppers out. It's like a little slide, and it's like the cup's at the bottom, and it slides up and pulls the ball out. Now, I think the intention is that you use your putter to hook that up and lift it up, and your ball pops out. Now, someone on the Instagrams made a very valid point. I'm not putting my $629 brand new Scotty Cameron, on that little bit of steel to pull up the thing. What's the situation there? How do you deal with that? So I sort of had empathy for that, because I like to keep my putters pristine, or 35 of them, which is sitting here to my left. What do you do there?
Yeah, well, firstly, I'd say that I have a Scotty Cameron, but it's rusty as all get. So I'm not as precious as some of you that, make love to your equipment basically. But you can use your foot. Or how about you grab a towel and try and hook that around, or grab another club, or there are instances, other ways of skinning a cat, so to say. So you can use your foot, can't you, Roscoe?
Yeah, I guess so. I've actually not played with those things, so I've never actually experienced that. I just saw the guy going, I'm putting my $699, Scotty camera there. So there you go. You can use your foot, you can use the towel. As you say, there are other ways, so just deal with it. Is basically the whole point of raising that.
I'm a little bit hardline when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's like don't complain. Just find a way around it that's still within the rules, and you're not, and you're being safe and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Come to me with solutions, Dave.
That's right. That's exactly right. Don't come to me with a problem.
Solution. You can use that on me sometimes. Now, mate, we've got another question here, and it is a question from a what we hope is going to be a regular questioner. It's Big P. We still don't know Big P's real name, but Big P from Clubland was good enough to give us another question. So we're going to go to Big P from Clubland again. Let's have a listen to him.
G'day, Blakey and Ross. Big P from Clubland here again. Just got a question again about playing in the Saturday comp, where I was playing with a not so talented golfer, although I'm probably not one to talk. He's playing the 17th at Box Hill over the creek. He hits one a little bit left, clips a branch, looks like it goes back into the water. We're not sure. He declares he's going to play provisional, which question one, can he do that if we think it's gone in the water? And then he plays a provisional onto the edge of the green, gets up there, thinks he'll have a look for the first one, and finds it outside of the hazard, in bounds, able to play it. Well, is he able to play it? And that's my question to you guys. Really look forward to hearing your response here and how you should proceed. Once again, thanks for all your great efforts educating us on the rules of golf.
EP, thanks for your question, and thanks for the mention. I don't think you mentioned me last time, but thanks for mentioning me as part of the team. I appreciate that. Look, I'll just say in opening, when you're playing in club comps, we're going to play with a whole range of people, whole range of handicaps. And, the beauty of the game of golf is the reason that it exists is that we can do it all together, regardless of skill level. So I think, we're going to have those situations where, someone's playing that's better or worse and that sort of thing. We've just got to get on with that and play. And that's not having a crack at you. I'm just saying that is part of playing golf at Clubland where you play, and part of the joy for me. But the reality is it's going to present situations like you refer to, and Blakey, that's why we're here, to help and understand and, really digest what was facing Big P from Clubland in that scenario.
Yeah, well, I think provisional ball can be quite confusing, and, it's probably something that I need to write a rules newsletter about if I haven't already. Let's talk about what a provisional ball is. And so basically you're hitting another ball from your same or the previous stroke made, the spot where you previously made a stroke, and you're hitting a provisional ball because you think your ball is lost outside of the penalty area, not just lost outside a penalty area, or it may be out of bounds. If you hit your ball and it's definitely out of bounds, you can see it bouncing down the road over on someone's driveway, you can't hit a provisional ball. The next ball off the tee is your next your ball in play, because that your original ball was out of bounds. So there's sort of how I go into this is there's 5 situations or 5 areas where your ball could be. Okay, and for 2 of those, you can hit a provisional, right? So number 1, out of bounds, can't hit a provisional. In the fairway, rough, a bunker, or on a putting green, and it's not lost, you have no evidence to suggest that it's lost, you can't hit a provisional. In a penalty area, you're known or virtually certain it's in the penalty area, you can't hit a provisional. It's in the rough, fairway, bunker, or on a putting green, less likely about the putting green and probably less likely about the fairway as well, but it's thought to be lost, you can hit a provisional. Or number 5, it may be out of bounds, you can hit a provisional. Now, you could have a combination of these. It could be maybe out of bounds, it could be, it might be in a penalty area, or it could be in the rough, not lost. Now, because you have maybe out of bounds, number 5, because that's in there as that combination, you can play a provisional. You get where I'm going with this?
Mm.
So if you have a combination of number 1 and 3, which is it's either out of bounds or it's in the penalty area, meaning that you probably couldn't have a combination of 1 and 3, but let's say 2 and 3, because if it might be out of bounds, then it's definitely not 1. That's 5. So 2, it's either in the fairway or it's in a penalty area. It couldn't be anywhere else. And if it's in the fairway and you are certain that it's not going to be lost in the fairway, then you can't hit a provisional ball. So going back to Big P's question, which is what we're trying to get to, the answer for Big P's question is they said, we think it might be in the water. So where else was it, Big P? Okay. And by water, he means penalty area, because I've played at Box Hill and the 17th is a little par 3. So where else could it be? And I think he said left side. So if it's left side, there is some, there is an out of bounds sort of area there. There is some long rough. And so there is a high chance that the ball actually could be lost outside that penalty area or out of bounds. So then hitting a provisional is okay. If it's either in bounds, it's either in the rough, which you could, you're going to easily find your ball, so you have no chance that it could be lost, or it could be in the penalty area, either lost or not lost, then you can't play a provisional ball. So to answer his question, he really needs to really needs to answer their own facts, the evidence that they had in front of them. And if he was able to play a provisional ball, then the original ball is still the ball in play and he can go and hit it, the one that was just outside the penalty area. If he wasn't permitted to hit a provisional ball, then the provisional ball, what he thinks was a provisional ball, is actually the ball in play, because that's the second ball played from the tee, and he's now lying where he's lying with the second ball played from the tee for 3. His next stroke will be his 4th. Does that make sense, or do we need to summarize that?
Well, good question. Can I provide, the example that pops into my mind's eye when I think about this scenario?
Absolutely.
So I'll use Mornington again, because most of my imbroglios have happened there over the journey. 3rd hole, great little hole. Sloping fairway. There's a penalty area in the form of a dam that runs pretty much from the start of the fairway down towards the green. For the longer hitters, especially with the prevailing sort of northerly wind, you can really flight a faded drive around there, use the slope of the fairway and get it really close to the green. Now, obviously, towards the green and the end of the fairway, the end, and adjacent to the penalty area, there are some big gums, big trees on the edge. I think might even be growing inside the penalty area, maybe, I'm not sure. But they're right on the edge of the penalty area. Now, if you hit a big bomb and you push it and you block it, it's quite likely that your ball is going to hit somewhere up in that tree. And because it's, 270 metres away, you might not see it spit out onto the fairway side or into the penalty area side. You don't see where it is. So you're not sure where it is. But it could be in the penalty area, but it could be somewhere else. What's the story in that scenario?
So Just confirm, because I just need to know this. Are the trees in the penalty area or not?
For the sake of the argument, let's say that they're not in the penalty area, but they're on the edge.
Okay, so they're not in the penalty area.
Branches might be overhanging penalty area.
Let's just say they're not in the penalty area and you heard them hit the trees. So you've got a highly likelihood, and you could lose your ball in those trees, right? Or around those trees.
Yes.
You have a likelihood that you could lose your ball outside a penalty area, so you can play a provisional ball.
Okay.
Now, if you play a provisional ball, you can't go up there. You've got less evidence, or less. You've probably got less than 95 virtual certainty that your ball definitely could win into the penalty area, meaning you can't proceed under the penalty area rules and take a drop up there. Okay, and that's what this provisional ball is trying to get away from. Is, okay, if you hit another one from the tee, that's fine, and it's going to save play, but then you can't go up there and have your cake and eat it too, saying that, oh, we can play a provisional ball, but we're now changed our mind and are definitely certain that the ball is in the penalty area, even though we can't find it. If you find it in there, great, proceed under the penalty area rules. If you don't find it in there, unless you completely got it wrong from the tee and that was the only spot, you went up there and you found out the trees were actually in the penalty area and you weren't permitted to play a provisional ball, but you didn't know that, then playing the provisional ball is fine. You now worked out, you've got known or virtual certainty that the ball is in the penalty area. Then you can.
So you play a third from up there.
Yeah, you can take a drop and play your third from up there even if you don't find it. So it's basically, can I hit a provisional ball? Well, do you have some kind of thought that the ball was lost outside the penalty area or maybe out of bounds? Okay, that's fine. When you get up there, you hit a provisional ball, but do you now, looking at the area, now think that you have at least 95% virtual certainty that the ball is in the penalty area if you can't find it?
Okay, so when you get up there, if you're 95% certain that you've lost the ball in the penalty area because it's not in that surrounding area, then you proceed under the penalty area.
You can, yes, you can. You can't continue with the provisional ball.
Yeah. So, interesting. So then if you get up there and find the ball in the penalty area, so you've hit your provisional, you get up there and you find your ball in the penalty area because there's receding water and it's sitting in some mud, 3 feet in the penalty area. That's your ball. That's you're dropping there at the nearest point of relief from the penalty area spot there and playing 3 from there.
You're either playing it or you're proceeding under Rule 17.1, which is that lateral relief. It's a red hand. It's a red penalty area, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're either taking the lateral, you're taking the back of the line, or you're going back to the tee to hit another one. You can't continue with the provisional ball. But if you get up there, you've hit a provisional ball and you're like, oh, it could be in the trees lost. It could be in the penalty area lost. I don't even want to bother searching for it, which you don't have to. You can just go to your provisional ball and play that.
Okay, so you can still make a call when you get up there that I'll go to a provisional ball and play that for my 4th.
Yeah, it just all depends on whether you have virtual certainty or not that it's in the penalty area.
Virtual certainty, that is the key to decision making for all of these scenarios. When you hit the ball into ground under repair and lose the ball, and there's probably another question that we can come back to in another scenario or another podcast.
Yeah, known or virtual certainty, and you've got to have at least 95%. Like a crow taking your ball that's in the middle of the fairway. Is it known or virtually certain that someone stole your ball? Something stole your ball?
Playing Cessnock Cup. First ever time I played in the Cessnock Cup, so it's an amateur event. It's a big event up there in my hometown. So playing off the 10th tee, strike one down the middle of the fairway. I actually had a little bit of nerves. Striped it. All of a sudden, 5 kids walked out from the driveway and picked my ball up and ran off. What happens there?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Fijian tournament, the Fiji International, this used to happen a bit too. So, if it's been moved by an outside influence, you just replace the ball on the estimated spot or the known spot. And if you don't know it, then your estimated spot, and there's no penalty. But if you can't tell if your ball's been taken, if you don't have at least 95% virtual certainty, then the ball's lost and you've got to go back to your last place played.
It was a brand new hot dot back in those days too. I was mortified. I didn't chase the kids anyway. Very good. I think we've answered Big P's question.
I hope so.
Very good. Now, mate, as we alluded to at the start of the episode, you've had some wonderful travels and wonderful experiences refereeing at some fairly sizable big tournaments. And some of the feedback that we get is, what's that been like? What sort of experiences have you come across in those tournaments? So just give us a rundown of some of those bigger events that you've been able to get onto the officiating team at.
Yeah, so I have been, I had this lucky opportunity to get to some of these big events, and it hasn't been due to my golf skill. I would have never got there if I'd had to leave it to that. So the biggest event's probably the WGC Dell Match Play, but that's over in Austin, Texas. That was 2 years ago. I was actually supposed to go there this year, but COVID happened and it was cancelled. But easily as big was the BMW Championship on the European Tour, which is their flagship event. Almost this time last year, and that was fantastic. So both those events, just amazing, huge crowds, just atmosphere, awesome. Also, after the BMW, I had the Dunhill Links, which is the sort of the teams event with the 3 courses: Carnoustie, Kings Barnes, and the old course. So that was, being in St Andrews was amazing, because it's just this real, you would know, but there's just this feeling of just golf. It's just golf everywhere. And obviously they have one of the third best university there too. So it's like a golf town and a university town. It's pretty cool. But refereeing at big events. I've done about 50 professional events. Sounds like a lot, but if you're a staff member on the PGA or the Corn Ferry or the European Tour, they're sort of doing 22, 24 events a year. So they do exactly that in about 2 years. So, I've compiled mine over the last sort of 8 years. My favorite tournament is probably the New Zealand Open, just because I'm a Kiwi. So love the home open, and the fact that I get to go to Queenstown is pretty lucky when I get picked for that one. It might not be as big as the other ones, but it's definitely special to me.
Can I ask you a question about, when you say getting picked? The New Zealand Open, the New Zealand Golf Association, whatever that, whatever they call themselves, I don't know, and you'll tell me, but how do they pick people?
New Zealand Golf, NZ Golf. Well, actually, they'll send invitations. I just happen to be sort of selected, luckily, by the PGA of Australasia as part of their tour team. I've been working with them for sort of 6 or 7 years, and that was very, very lucky for me to get that position, just because I have an absolute love of the rules. And a love of the rules is one thing, but then sort of having I've had to work on my player management, because these people out there, it's their office. They're there to make a living, and you're just there to provide advice or, assistance with the rules, so that it's fair for everyone. You treat everyone the same, as much the same as you can. But yeah, getting on the team, getting invitations. Most of my invitations have come through the PGA of Australasia, so very thankful to them for those invitations.
And what about other closer to home events? So you mentioned the Fiji International. I assume that you've been there, yeah?
Yeah. So the Fiji International was went over 5 years. I got to 4 of them. It's a fun place. Natandola Bay. It's a stunning golf course with a amazing sort of backdrop of the Pacific Ocean, and the climate's fantastic, although it can get a bit windy. I think the one year that I wasn't there, the cut might have been plus 14 because it was so windy. But yeah, that's probably one of the coolest things that I really enjoy about this is just the travel. Other people can get sick of the travel. If you're traveling sort of 20, 25 weeks a year, it can be a real big burden, especially if you've got, a young family. But getting all these places, we go up to the Gold Coast for Royal Pines, obviously Queenstown for New Zealand Open, Sydney for the Australian Open, the Men's Open, and then the Women's Open is over in Adelaide. And then last year, I was lucky enough to work with the European Tour to do the BMW, the Dunhill Links, the Spanish Open, and the Italian Open. For me, for sort of these other guys, the staffers, it's just another week and just another destination. But for me, who doesn't do this that often, I loved every week of it. 4 weeks on a road for most people would be extreme, but as I said, I loved every minute of it. And you meet all these different people from around the world, and everyone's so friendly and kind. And who would have thought we all just had this sort of rules of golf knowledge in common? There are communities out there that just love the rules of golf so much. So, but we're just there to help the players. That's what we are there. It's an entertainment business. We're there to entertain, and we just want to help the players so that they can play their best and shoot the lowest score. And by help them, I mean help everyone. It's not like you're just kicking your ball out of the rough or something like that. You're helping everyone by having a fair playing field. So that's what we're doing.
And I sort of get the impression by the way that you've recounted some of the stories to me, in private, is that some of the players, when you've helped adjudicate or officiate on a ruling, maybe view it as you've helped them, and it's not the case. It's the rule. The rule's the rule, and it doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what you are. Here's the rule, and here's how it applies to this situation. So that's what you're dealing with. But is that sort of how you sort of read it?
Yeah, players have emotions. Players are human as well. So if you give them a terrible ruling, it almost feels like they think it's you giving them the bad ruling. Whereas if you give them a good ruling, they almost think that it's you that's giving them a good ruling. And, it wouldn't matter who the player was. I'd give the same ruling and try and be as accurate with the rules of golf as I could be. It has nothing to do with who the player is. The rules can be a little bit subjective. There will be times when you're looking at a player and that that they're just trying to try it on. They're just trying to get free relief. There's some players over the years that you could name. There'd be more than a handful that in situations they'll say certain things to try and make sure the referee goes down a certain pathway. And it's very hard and tricky, especially if you've just got there, you've just arrived at the scene. Golf, that kind of thing is not really here's a situation about to happen. It's always this situation just did happen, and you're hoping that you can minimize any effect on the player by any penalties or whatever. But if they've done something untoward, then obviously you're going to have to hand out a penalty. But yeah, no, you know, one of the hardest ones in this regard is actually driving a player back to the tee. You know, it turns up 3-minute ball search, or they've hit their ball out of bounds and they just found out, and you've actually got to drive them back to the tee. That's probably one of the hardest ones, because, you know, you're sitting in the cart, the player's sitting there, he's just hit one, or she's just hit one out of bounds. They're not feeling too great, or they've just lost a ball. They're not feeling too great. The caddy might be on the back of the cart. What do you say to that? Oh yeah, bad luck, mate, or terrible shot. Did you just hook that one? Or, you know, just get a little bit over the top of that, or didn't you know there was out of bounds on the left-hand side? You can't say anything like, but, you know, I've had like maybe 2 players say, you know, have a little conversation, or, you know, how's your day going, or, you know, thanks for helping out, or, you know, introduce, my name's blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I haven't seen you around here too many times or whatever. And you just, you know.
Oh, so you didn't go with, hi, I'm Dave from Australia on work experience. Can I have an autograph?
I've never asked for an autograph. I've wanted to, even though I think that autographs are silly. But no, the main thing now is the selfie. I've always wanted to do that, but you know, that's just
showing my age again. Sorry, autographs for a thing. I did actually have an autograph book at one point in time. So
yeah, so did I back in the day for cricket. You know, if I went and watched the cricket, I'd get someone's autograph. But yeah, no, that's. I've wanted to, but then at the same time, you're just in this mode of being as professional as you can be, and you'd love to get a selfie, but it's just not appropriate.
Time and place, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so it's pretty funny.
There's something happened in the world of tennis this week, which popped up on everyone's, you know, sports fans' radar, and that was the world number 1, Novak Djokovic, being shunted from, you know, the US Open for striking a ball, accidentally hitting a rules official, hitting her in the neck and injured her, and he was disqualified from the tournament. And that's the rule that they have in tennis. You know, he said it wasn't intentional, but, you know, his intent to hit the ball was in a reckless way happened, and therefore hit the poor lady. How does that scenario sort of play out in golf? You know, I can imagine when we're talking about these scenarios that, you know, someone's not happy with you and what you've done to them, even though you just implied the rules. Has there been any sort of history of, maybe not the same, you know, a player hitting a golf ball at the official, but, you know, has there been any sort of golf related things like that?
Yes, not that I can name off the top of my head, or maybe I don't want to name off the top of my head. But yeah, that's definitely happened. You know, golfers can get just as heated under the collar as other players or other people. You know, other sports players or other people. And there's a lot of cases, because we're an entertainment business, but we're also on TV, and we've got to have this great image of what the sport is, so we can encourage other people to play it. There's a lot of, if it gets on TV, basically, the tour will have their own little book of what you can and can't do. But if it gets on TV and you're swearing or you're breaking something, you're basically going to get fined. So you might get depending on what it is, $1,000, $2,000, 10,000, 20,000, whatever it is. You're basically going to get fined, and they'll just send you a letter. You owe us this much, because, you know, that's a bad look for the game. So you have to, you basically have to pay up. So it's definitely happened. It's not like all golfers are model citizens, but, you know, there's this thing called spirit of the game. And, you know, what I've said previously, it's really a test of character, not so much, it's less about being a test of skill. And so the test of character, you're going to have those situations that are really, what you face is going to be really tough. You know, you're playing for a lot of money, you're playing for your livelihood, but sometimes you just got to keep those emotions in check so that you can continue to be a good person.
And just in closing on, some of these stories that you've got from your work on the tour, shaking Tiger Woods' hand, has that ever happened?
Well, it's so funny. I totally forgot that I did the President's Cup. So I assisted at the President's Cup last year, which was crazy because, in a tournament, the most crazy thing was that in a tournament, you'll have, a Thursday, Friday, you have 150 golfers, and on a Saturday, Sunday, you might have 60 or 70. And so at one point in time, the whole course is full. On the Thursday, Friday, you got 2 times during the day that the course is full. On Saturday, Sunday, it's just one time the whole course will be full. And then it starts to empty out as people finish their round. With the President's Cup, it was only like 4 groups or whatever it was. And then on the Sunday singles was 12 groups. But, so you had this like massive people just around 3 or 4 holes. It would have been incredible. I didn't really spend too much time out there watching as a spectator, but just because it was so busy. But I certainly, was really afforded a great opportunity, and I was very happy to the PGA Tour and also the Golf Australia for putting my name forward for that. And it just so happened that I got allocated to a group. I was the observer, which is sort of the person who walks forward. So I wasn't necessarily the referee, but it was for one of my very good friends, Andrew Langford-Jones, who's the director of tournaments on the PGA Tour of Australasia. And so he was the walking referee on the first match for the singles on the Sunday, and I was the observer. So I walk down in front of the fairway, make sure the balls that Abraham Ancer and Tiger Woods were in a good position, or not in a good position, but in a position where we knew where they were. They hadn't been touched by spectators. They weren't out of bounds. Blah blah blah. On the green, had any balls been moved or anything like that? And I actually got one of those rulings. It would have been on the 9th hole, I think it was. Yeah, the 9th hole, which is the 17th west. Any listeners listening to this and correct me if I'm wrong. But Tiger Woods' ball actually hit Abraham Ancer. He teed off second, and his ball actually ended up hitting Abraham Ancer's in the middle of the fairway. So I went over there, and as they walked up, I said, "Oh, you need to move your ball back to here," and blah blah, and then got out of the way. And I think we might have had another couple. There might have been one other rules. So it was a pretty quiet day. But there might have been one other one where we determined who was away. Match play, order of play makes a big difference. And other than that, it was pretty easy. But it was just the fact that we were put in the first group, and it just so happened that Abraham Ancer and Tiger Woods were playing each other. And then I just made sure on that last hole, which he finished with a birdie putt on the 16th, the 18th East at 18th East hole at Royal Melbourne. Just made sure I was right behind Andrew Langford-Jones, and forgot to take my hat off, which I was a bit disappointed at myself. But then again, I had long hair back then, so it was probably a better idea not to. But made sure that I stuck my hand out and got to shake Tiger Woods' hand, and obviously Abraham Ancer's. But that was a moment incredible. It's a childhood hero, and here I was shaking his hand after he played. I think he shot like 67 or something. So just played so well.
It would have been an amazing experience to be. It was obviously an amazing experience being there and just, getting close to players like that, and especially Tiger Woods, and I'd seen Tiger when Huntingdale back in 1995 when he sort of first came out, around then when he first came out, and before he was the phenom that he is. But just to see him down there and just to see the adulation and the aura that goes with Tiger, but to think that you're there and then you got to press the flesh and shake his hand, because if you just watch some of the video of him in all of the press conferences and the scenarios that you get to see him in, he doesn't do a lot of that. He doesn't walk around and shake the hands of everyone in the room. He's like straight to where he needs to go, say what I need to say, and then out of there. So you're in a small minority of people that have probably had that privilege. So that would have been pretty amazing, I can imagine. Now, Blakey, great stories, and I'm sure the listeners will love hearing all of them. And if you do have any questions of Blakey in his experiences, once again, feel free to shoot them in, and he'll do his best to answer. We'll do our best to answer those. We have been having a little bit of fun with our background bingo. The answers to, anyone that responded to last week's background bingo will come in next episode, but we've got a couple of new backgrounds here. I'm going to lead off with mine. I will give a couple of hints because it's a little bit obscure. You can see some water, some rocks, some stone fences. That's starting to give a little bit of cues to the sort of area. But what I can see is some beautiful mountains in the background across the water, across to that peninsula over there. I can see, if I move my head this way, I can see a little castle, little small castle on the point there. So that's significant of the area. The area where this is, castles on little points, that were used as lookouts to, defend areas. And what I will give you a hint is this is an Arnold Palmer course. Arnold, the great Arnie Palmer, was responsible for the design at this place. So that's as much as I'm going to do. Background bingo, that's my picture there. Blakey, yours is equally obscure. I don't know what level of hintage you want to give, but it's a beautiful picture. Who took that one?
I just want to shout out I stole this off the internet, and Dave Comer's photo. It's up there in my mind of one of my favorite courses. I have played it once. Mainly it's one of my favorites just because of the views and the location. Again, closer to home for us down here in Melbourne. So that's all I'll give. Surely, if you haven't been to this location, whether you play golf here or not, you should get there one day. I mean, this is number one in the world in my mind. Okay.
Well, that'll do you for hints. There's my photo there. I took that photo myself, so I haven't been it. And I can't wait to go back there one day. Blakey, once again, it's another 40-odd minutes of great information, great stories, and look forward to having everyone back on the GolfRules Questions podcast next week, or whenever we come back.
That's right. No, it's been great. Well, we've still got so much to talk about. We could go for a couple 20, 30 years, couldn't we, Roscoe? All right. See you guys.
Thank you very much.